Hello everyone, this is a video that has been brewing, I suppose, for the past several weeks, and I guess I've just been trying to wait for the right moment to kind of speak about it in a way that makes sense, and in some ways it's nothing new, and it's touching upon stuff I've spoken about in previous videos and even over the past couple of years, but for whatever reason, and especially in this last month or so, right around the time when I was in the last couple of weeks of finishing the documentary, and I was just immersed in all the editing and putting it together, and um, the eclipse was coming up, and so a lot of people were getting really into analyzing the eclipse and taking that apart after it happened, and trying to figure out where the sun, what was actually blocking the sun. And of course it's just sparking the whole debate over the mechanics of the heavens and the celestial bodies again, and lots of discussions and debates on that. At the same time, you've got the magnetic flat earth kind of model like Steve Torrance, Mike Cavanaugh, and Dr. Zach put out, which is just very intriguing. And yeah, just of course it definitely lines up with a lot of the stuff I've been looking into for a while now, with the whole toroidal magnetic concept, connecting to the heavens and all that. And then at the same time, I got people, friends coming to me, who I regard very highly, and getting very excited about the Book of Enoch. I think it's chapter 77, and thinking that, well, the whole flat Earth map is laid out in Enoch, and you got to look into this. And other people coming at me and very aggressively, rebuking me for promoting the disk map. It's time to ditch the disk map. Why are you promoting the PSYOP as a methyl equidistant map? The circle map is the fake map, So all this stuff, right? And I'm just in the middle of trying to put together this stinking documentary. So the whole map, it's just the map question, which I've been looking into for 2 years now, and I'm as curious as anyone about so many things. But at the same time, this last month has really just kind of, I think, brought me back to a conviction, where, as interesting as all this stuff is, I guess I should start off by saying, first and foremost, I do not endorse any map. So, there's a lot of people that think if you show any depiction of the flat Earth that's remotely circular, that you're promoting the circle map, or that I'm saying this is what it looks like. No, I'm not. That's not what I'm doing. So, okay, I do think, for the record, I do think that there's good reason to not just abandon the idea that it could be circular in nature. That doesn't mean that the edge is necessarily circular per se. It could be square with, the sun and moon and the heavens rotating in us. And I've talked about this a lot before, that if the heavens are hyperdimensional and we are in the three-dimensional, four-dimensional, three-dimensional plus time existence of our, from our perspective, we're looking at things that, is it something that is even realistic to try and map out and figure out the mechanics of it. So the whole map question is just this ongoing thing, where I'm not trying to say it's a that it's a waste of time, or that it's just, I'm not trying to rebuke anyone else for looking into it. I really appreciate so much of the work and the research that different people do. But at the same time, when you start getting, dogmatic about the map, especially when it's other, when it's other like Christian flat earthers that are coming at me, and they're getting all worked up because, like, why are you promoting the circle map? And that's the decoy, and they're getting really worked up about, getting away from the circle map, and it's got to have something to do with the 4D map. So to speak a little bit on that for a second, the Pac-Man map, there's different versions of it. You've got the one that's sort of like it's basically like an infinite rectangle, or But then a lot of people also kind of recognize that that doesn't make sense. And the thing is that gets me is that in so many ways, the whole 4D thing is a way of just people look at the issues with the AE map. They look at especially in the southern hemisphere, whether it's the flights and the distances, or the observations of the sun and the moon and the stars. And so we got to solve these problems. Otherwise, if we don't solve all these discrepancies and come up with a working model, then flat Earth will never get off the ground, and we're never gonna expose the globe lie. So it's all about thinking that it's incumbent upon us to come up with the working model, right? That's just the holy grail to a lot of flat earthers, is we got to find the model, we got to find the map. Anyways, but I think, so yeah, there are those anomalies and those pesky things with the AE map that we're all still looking into. We're aware of them. I've been aware of them since the very beginning. But at the same time, I think going to the square map or the Pac-Man map, in some ways, does it really, for all the problems that it seems to solve, I would say it just creates new problems, or just kind of shifts them around. You're sort of just rearranging the furniture, so to speak. It's not necessarily making it any more. Yeah, I don't know if they realize that, because if you think in terms of distances in the southern hemisphere, then you're actually expanding them in the northern hemisphere, because everything's then square or rectilinear. So on a circular map, the longitude lines still do converge in the center on one part of the map. The question is, what's really going on in the southern, on the southern rim? But so with the square map, you're kind of skewing that on both sides. And then a lot of times I've heard this argument from people that say, well, the Bible, especially coming from the Christian promoters of the 4D map or whatever, the Pac-Man idea, is that, well, the Bible says the four corners. So a circular map doesn't have corners. So look, here we have corners. When in reality, I don't. And so I'm like, okay, I guess that's a valid objection or whatever. Or to me, I don't see any contradiction there. You can have four corners. You really can have four corners on the disc, or the disc within the four corners outside of it. I mean, those sort of depictions have been around for a long, long time. I even drew a picture when I was first looking into flat Earth that was kind of exploring the idea. Who knows? But so that's sort of the starting point, and they go, well, that's unbiblical because it doesn't, a disc doesn't have corners, and so then they come up with this. But in reality, there's no corners on this, because you're blocked in between two infinite walls, going in every direction, and there's no corners at all, because there's no walls that sort of come to a terminus point together. So to me, it's just kind of silly. But speaking of corners and everything, there's also this whole project here that's kind of in some ways based off of the idea of the 4D map and the Pac-Man model, and the work of channels like Free Energy and stuff. And this is getting kind of crazy because, I did a video, I don't know how long ago, maybe a year ago, talking about Flat Earth, the final mystery school, just asking the question of this whole quest to try and figure out the map and figure out the model itself, turning into this sort of esoteric labyrinth, or this sort of seduction that is pulling people. Is the flat Earth map issue itself being used to pull people into New Age and occult beliefs? And even then, we were seeing it all over the place. And most of you understand that the New Age, the New Age teachings and the occult, and mysticism and all that is all over the place in the flat Earth, just like it is in the broader truth movement and the conspiracy world and everything. So yeah, that was however long ago, and now we're at the point where we're seeing, you've got guys like Devin Maggi, who does this video is from like today actually, talking again about this whole idea of the Hyperborea, where he's basically using presumably a circular flat Earth, approach, and all these old accounts of people going to the North Pole and finding basically like a paradise on the other side of the Arctic mountains and all this. And again, it's hard to say like how apparently he's serious in terms of trying to get people to buy into this idea that if you can actually physically get to the North Pole on the flat Earth map, then that is basically where it's like Shangri-La. It's where you're going to go and reverse the process of devolution and the lower physical state that we are. So spiritual evolution here again, apotheosis, the whole transcension idea is being incorporated into the flat Earth ideology. Totally preaching, this is New Age lies. This is Luciferian, deception at its worst. And this is something that the more I continue on with all this research and engage with people across the spectrum of the flat Earth, the more the more I come across it, the more this is far more important to me than debating over the mechanics in the map and trying to figure all that out. I mean, so speaking of like the four corners and New Age and occultism, you got this map that is based off of the 4D map where they're straight up basing their model on, you got the flower of life and the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life. You've got fractal geometry. At one point, they show the Mandelbrot, the Mandelbrot set. So it's like all they're using actual like sacred geometry, quote unquote, totally occult symbolism and concepts in the quote unquote in the map itself. So it really begs the question: are you using all these esoteric sort of clues to try and figure out the map, or is figuring out the map inadvertently becoming this gateway for people to get absorbed into the New Age pantheistic, Gnostic deceptions? And I definitely would say it's the latter. But I see this all over, and so I suppose that's why it is frustrating when there are other people who are looking into flat Earth from a biblical perspective, but they seem more focused on chasing the map than chasing the truth of who created this enclosed world that we're living in, because that's ultimately far more important than the nature and scope of all the mechanics of where we live. Because ultimately it just really brings us back to the same pivotal questions that exist no matter what. Who made us? Why are we here? What is the solution to the problem of the human condition? What is the solution to all the deception and all the oppression and all the horrible things going on with this control system and everything else? Either what the Bible says is true about who God is, who we are, what our problem is, and what the answer is, or the Eastern mysticism and the pantheism, the pantheistic monism, and all the occult New Age shamanistic belief systems that are all basically variations of the same thing. They can't, they are mutually exclusive truth claims. They're mutually exclusive concepts of who God is and who we are. They are mutually exclusive concepts of salvation. They are mutually exclusive. So they cannot both be true. The Bible is not just simply another embodiment of the same old quote unquote ancient truths. No, it stands alone. And so this is just at the end of the day, it's like it's great to talk about maps and models and mechanics of the heavens and all these cosmological questions, but really to me these are all just precursors. They're all they do is point to the really important questions. I mean, it comes down to the question of the gospel. What is your gospel? What is your good news? Where's your hope? What about life after death? What about heaven and hell? What about eternity? What about, the conclusion of all of human history? How's it going to end up? How's it going to conclude? Because the Bible talks about, the judgment for all the horrible things that have gone on in all of history, and also on our personal individual scale in our own life, that we will all stand before the Most High. And that is not, understandably, that's not an appealing thought to anyone. Certainly not me. Because of all the crazy, stupid, horrible things I've done in my life. But that's why the gospel of Jesus Christ is unlike anything else in the world. And there is so much disinformation and so much distortion and so much manipulation of the truth when it comes to who Jesus is and who God is and what he did at the cross and why it matters that he rose again and that he's coming back. That's the biggest conspiracy, is against the gospel. It's not, yes, the cosmology issue and hiding, hiding the enclosed fixed earth. It's a part of it. It's part of the whole agenda, hiding God, right? Why would they lie to hide God? Well, okay, so who's God? Are we all a part of God? Are we all emanations of God? Are we all evolving back towards Godhood? If you believe that, then what difference does it make to reject the Copernican universe and to reject, Darwinian evolution and reject the mainstream version of it? But you're just believing the same thing and just in a slightly modified form. If you're still going to believe that we're all, humanity is basically good and we just got to get back to the ancient wisdom and religion is oppressive and all this stuff that's coming through the mainstream media, by the way. The mainstream is not promoting the Bible. It's not promoting repentance. It's not teaching people to be convicted of their sin and turn away from their sin and believe on Jesus. Do you ever hear that in the mainstream media? Do you see that in the movies? Do you hear that in the news? No, you don't. You hear the New Age gospel everywhere in all those places. Becoming superhuman, using technology, using psychedelics, doesn't matter whether it's, the right-hand path or the left-hand path. It's just two sides of the same lying coin. It's the Hegelian dialectic. It's the oldest trick in the book, divide and conquer. It's just different flavors of the same poison. That poison is the oldest lie that is in existence. It goes back to the garden, the serpent, telling them that God's holding out on you. God's keeping you from your full potential. He knows that if you eat this, your eyes will be opened and you'll be like him, knowing good and evil. You'll be enlightened. You'll become godlike. It's the same thing. It has not changed in thousands and thousands of years. I mean, I have people coming to me like every day going like, well, I can't believe you still believe in that Bible. Like, don't you think they would have changed it? Can't you put it together that they've wrote it for their own agenda and they're just controlling? It's like, do you know what it says 3 chapters in? Do you know what it exposes the whole thing, the whole deception is right there. Chapters 1 and 2 tell you how God made everything, and then chapter 3 tells you how it all went wrong and how it's still going wrong because we're still believing that lie. In all kinds of ways and all kinds of forms and fashions, and now we're just seeing the chasing of the map, the chasing of the model, the chasing of we can come together and pool our resources and figuring out how they've hidden it, how they've and I'm not saying that there's no point in investigating these things and mapping them, but at some point you got to be able to say there's a limit to how much we're going to be able to figure out, right? Because if you don't at any point stop and remind yourself of that, then ultimately you're in the same philosophical position that the materialistic, heliocentric, all the mainstream scientism figureheads are constantly, spouting, where we can figure out the secrets of the universe, and we're going to figure it out. We're going to put it all into an equation. We're going to become, masters of our own fate. I mean, that's what scientism preaches. Is that through knowledge and through learning and through, all these, they're all about building models. You know what has struck me lately is that, the Bible tells us lots of things about the nature of where we live, that, you know, that it's revealed information, but it never actually tries to give us a map. God never tried to give us a map of, like, to paint a specific picture of this is what your world looks like. And it's not like God wasn't capable of doing that. I mean, when we think about the visions that he gave in terms of, like, well, this is how you build the temple, and this many cubits long, this many cubits high, you're going to make this out of this. It's very, very deep, very, very detailed. But when it comes to the earth and the heavens and the pillars under the earth and all these things, I mean, is it trying to map it all out for us? So we turn around and we look at the folly and we look at the hubris of so many generations that came before, who were Christians that tried to merge the biblical revelation with the arrogance of the world, with natural philosophy and the development of the scientific approach to knowledge in the world, which is ultimately based in occultism and humanism and all that. They got sucked into that trap. But just because you step back from the Copernican system and outer space and it's enclosed, great, but you can still be mirroring that same underlying mentality. So there is a limit to how much we're going to figure out, I think. I mean, especially, like, if you understand that when we're talking about the heavens, okay, now it's brought back into this more spiritual context, right? There's dimensions to it that are beyond our comprehension, and it's not just static, it's not just mechanical, that there's also seemingly the involvement of conscious angelic beings who are participate in this whole system. So to talk about modeling and trying to figure out the mechanics and to try and break it all down scientifically, it's at some point it's almost to the stage of that old, cliche debate about arguing over how many angels can fit on the head of a pin. They really did debate that hundreds of years ago, and I don't remember what the story was, but it was one of those synods where all these theologians were, I mean, they were dead serious. They were debating. They got in this big, huge, heated debate over how many angels could fit on the head of a pin. And at what point do we get into the danger of falling into that same trap, Like, there's so many things in the Bible that I just do not understand on a mechanical level. I don't know how Jesus walked on water. I don't know what the molecules of the Sea of Galilee were actually doing to allow him to, you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to. I'm not. Maybe one day we'll have that conversation, But the important part about that story is what the fact that he was able to walk on water says about who he is, and what I need to do in response to that realization. And so again, that's what it constantly comes back to. And there's so many people that just want to make it about, flat earth. There's enough division. We need flat earth unity, or we need to be unified around a map. And it's like, you need to know who the Creator is and what he has done and what he is calling you to do. You need to be able to have discernment over the things that matter the absolute most. And a physical map won't get you there. A friend of mine sent me this the other day. I think he found this at, like, a thrift store or something. He likes thrift stores just like I do. Harper's Bible Dictionary. I don't know what year this was printed, but of course you had to look it up. So on page 309, The firmament. The ancient Hebrews imagined the world as flat and round, covered by the great solid dome of the firmament, which was held up by the mountain pillars. Job 26 and 37. Above the firmament and under the earth was water, divided by God at creation. The upper waters were joined by the waters of the primordial deep during the flood. The rains were believed to fall through the windows in the firmament. The sun, moon, and stars moved across or were fixed to the firmament. Within the earth lay Sheol, the realm of the dead. I mean, it's just a silly little cartoon. We've all seen this picture, but I mean, yeah, I don't know when this book was written, but apparently it was written before they were too worried about, trying to cover up the fact that, yeah, this is what the ancient Hebrews really did believe, the people who authored the Bible. But it's not a map, It's the simplistic little, it's just enough. It's just enough. It's not in detail. We don't know what the pillars under the earth are attached to. Are they attached to anything? We don't know how big is the primordial. I mean, even if you were able to figure out exactly how big the firmament was and what the size of it and the shape and what it was made out of and how far across, is it a disc? Is it a square? I mean, there's still other questions beyond that you could just get lost in. What is the primordial ocean? How do the windows in the firmament work? How do the portals that open and close to allow the winds of the earth to come? I mean, it's like it never ends. The stuff goes on and on. So again, this is not the map. The answer doesn't lie here. It lies here. And at the end of the day, I mean, the gospel trumps everything. I just feel this, lately I just feel this impending sense of urgency. The time is getting short. The kingdom of darkness is getting ready to make its final big play. And it's the eternities of millions and millions of people that's at stake. And there's a time of testing that's coming upon us. You can have a map and still be lost. And nothing grieves me more than seeing people who are lost. And they don't have to be. Because the truth is right in front of you. God is not hiding. We talk about them hiding God. Well, we hide from God more than anything else is what's going on. We run from God. We turn away from God. We ignore God. He's not ignoring us. He's not hiding from you. He's right there. So that's the only reason I think I'm still doing this, is because I see people finding God. And if there's even a chance that even one more person out there could find God, it's worth to keep going another day. So, anyways, thanks for listening to me babble on. But if you hear nothing else, know that God loves you. God knows you. He wants you to know Him. God is everywhere. You're never lost with God. You're never alone. He knows how everything works. The Bible says that the eye has not seen, nor ear has heard, nor the mind conceived of what God has prepared for those who love Him. So ultimately, trying to figure out we can't even conceive of everything that God even has made now, but is making for the future. Because there is a new heaven and new earth coming. There's a new creation that is even yet to be revealed. The old is going to be wiped away. The heavens are going to be rolled up like a scroll and shaken, and the earth too, and it's going to be a complete reset. So yeah, getting stuck in all the mechanics and the model it's pointless in so many ways. What matters more than anything is that you open your heart to the one who loves you and is chasing after you and gave his very life for you. You are precious to God. You're more precious to him than anything else in this creation, including all those magnificent angels that are up there. Think about that. You mean more to God than any of that stuff. You mean more to God than anything. Jesus never died to redeem a fallen angel. There's no redemption for the fallen angels. It's kind of a sobering, harsh truth, but there's redemption for us. If only we just believe. God bless. Blocking the sun, and of course it's just sparking the whole debate over the mechanics of the heavens and the celestial bodies again, and lots of discussions and debates on that. At the same time, you've got the magnetic flat earth kind of model like Steve Torrance, Mike Cavanaugh, and Dr. Zach put out, which is just very intriguing, and yeah, just of course it definitely lines up with a lot of the stuff I've been looking into for a while now, with the whole toroidal magnetic concept connecting to the heavens and all that. And then at the same time, hello everyone, this is a video that has been brewing, I suppose, for the past several weeks, and I guess I've just been trying to wait for the right moment to kind of speak about it in a way that makes sense, and in some ways it's nothing new, and it's touching upon stuff I've spoken about, right? And I'm just in the middle of trying to put together this stinking documentary. So the whole map, it's just the map question, which I've been looking into for 2 years now, and I'm as curious as anyone about so many things, but at the same time, this last month has really just kind of, I think, brought me back to a conviction where, as interesting as all this stuff is, I guess I should start off by saying, first and foremost, I do not endorse any map. So, the previous videos and even over the past couple of years, but for whatever reason, and especially in this last month or so, right around the time when I was in the last couple of weeks of finishing the documentary, and I was just immersed in all the editing and putting it together, and the eclipse was coming up, and so a lot of people were getting really into analyzing the eclipse and taking that apart after it happened, and trying to figure out where the sun, what was actually, I got people, friends coming to me, who I regard very highly, and getting very excited about the book of Enoch. I think it's chapter 77, and thinking that, the whole flat earth map is laid out in Enoch, and you got to look into this. And Other people coming at me and very aggressively, rebuking me for promoting the disk map. It's time to ditch the disk map. Why are you promoting the PSYOP as a methyl equidistant map? The circle map is the fake map, So all this